Imagine this.
This morning when I went to work, I found that none of the managers or supervisors had shown up. Then someone from HR sent a message in the group chat saying the factory was shutting down. The reason is that starting from September 1st, everyone is required to pay full social insurance.
In just 1 week, across China's industrial heartland, at least 7 major factories, from Hebei to Guangdong, from Shanghai to Chongqing, saw workers take to the streets. They weren't protesting foreign competition. They weren't even demanding higher wages. They were fighting for something far more basic: survival in a system where economic slowdown and the new social insurance rules are colliding like 2 high-speed trains on the same track. So the question is, what happens when tens of millions of workers, the backbone of China's manufacturing machine, find themselves caught in that collision? Welcome to China Decoded. Let's unpack the case file.
It's been 7 years. This year, every month, we've been accumulating water bills, and now we're also paying Social Security. So what's the result? For this kind of thing, every month, each employee has to pay more than 1,500 yuan. Here's how I see it. Actually, I've never paid Social Security myself, and neither has anyone in my family. I just want to ask, are you all willing to pay Social Security? Even though this shop has never made money, I've still arranged it this way. If we calculate it at 1,500 yuan per month, I'll pay 500 yuan for you, and you pay 1,000 yuan yourself. Would that work? Master, are you willing to pay? Sir, hello sir, thank you auntie. Are you going to pay or not? If you're not paying, are you going to pay or not? What about Master Liu? If no one is willing to pay, and I have to pay 1,500 yuan for each of you, honestly, I can't afford it anymore. Over the past 7 years of hardship you've given me, this shop still hasn't broken even. So after we finish this month, let's just close the shop. You all have been with me for 7 years, from the opening until now, always sticking by my side. To close it so suddenly, I do feel guilty, but right now, the only practical solution is to act quickly. So what do you think? Let's keep going until September 1st.
On paper, Beijing's mandatory social insurance policy is framed as a milestone for worker protection. It requires employers to pay into 5 different funds: pensions, healthcare, unemployment, work injury, and maternity for every employee. No exceptions, no reductions. The official line is about dignity in retirement, better medical care, and a safety net in uncertain times. But the ground reality, in the space of just 7 days, China saw at least 7 large-scale labor actions: strikes, factory gate settings, and mass petitions. And here's the pattern. The disputes were not over abstract political slogans. They were about unpaid wages, sudden layoffs, relocation compensation, and factory closures. Workers allege that the new social insurance costs are being pushed directly onto them, or worse, used as a reason to shut the factory entirely.
Isn't it that next month we'll be required to pay Social Security? Right now, I already have 3 friends who run e-commerce businesses in my WeChat moments who are laying off employees. No joke. I've seen a lot of people online saying this too. We never got mandatory 2-day weekends, but now we're facing mandatory Social Security payments. Some companies are outrageous. They just inform employees that Social Security contributions will be deducted from their salaries. Many people's wages weren't high, 4,000 or 5,000 a month, and after deducting 1,500 for Social Security, they're left with just over 3,000. And then there are jobs like cleaning, where the salary is just over 2,000. If you deduct Social Security from that, after covering a month's living expenses, you might actually end up paying to go to work. Tell me, what's the point of working then?
Let's walk through the evidence chain. Case 1. Shanghai, August 8th. At the gates of a leather auto interior company in Linhang district, hundreds of workers held banners demanding higher surveillance. One veteran of 10 years showed the math. She'd only get around 27,000 yuan total. That's less than 4,000 US dollars for a decade of work. Case number 2. Guangzhou, same day. A packaging company shut down overnight. Management vanished. roughly 200 employees gathered outside, demanding wages owed. According to one worker, the factory's annual profit was around 200,000 yuan, but under the new social insurance rules, they'd owe 500,000 yuan a month in contributions. In his words, the boss couldn't last a week. Case number 3, Hebei, August 6th and 7th. Dismissed workers from the pharmaceutical firm accused the company of avoiding legal mandated compensation by demanding they prove years of service, even though their records were locked in the company's own files. And the list continues. Shenzhen workers striking over wage deductions. A high-tech firm facing protests from over 1,000 engineers demanding lawful compensation. Chongqing employees claim forced position changes as a way to make them quit. Different industries, different cities, same underlying trigger. Cost pressures intensified the mandatory contributions. Here's the critical context. China's small and medium-sized enterprises already operates on the razor-thin margins, especially after years of COVID lockdowns, supply chain shifts, and weakening global demand. Now, under the mandatory scheme, a worker earning 5,000 yuan could see 2,000 yuan deducted for social insurance, a 40% cut in take-home pay if the employer passes the cost down. Employers face sudden, non-negotiable increases in labor costs. Labor rights advocates point out the paradox. A policy designed to protect workers may be accelerating layoffs, closures, and wage disputes.
As long as all business owners are pushed to a dead end, the new Social Security regulations coming into effect on September 1st are about to be officially implemented. Have you heard about it? All businesses and individual entrepreneurs, anyone doing business. In other words, as long as you hire employees, as long as you have people working under you, you must pay Social Security for your employees, and it is mandatory. In recent years, it's already been tough for business owners and brick-and-mortar shop owners. Most are just barely getting by or even operating at a loss, and some are still hanging on despite losing money. But now, with this new Social Security regulation coming out, it's going to make things even worse for all brick-and-mortar shop owners. They were already basically working for their landlords and their employees, and now the bosses are being forced to pay Social Security contributions as well. Just think about that. Can they really keep going like this? Some people are asking, is it that Social Security needs us? Or that we need Social Security? In the past, employees and bosses could sign an agreement stating that the boss didn't need to pay Social Security for the employee. If something happened, they could show this agreement as proof that the employee voluntarily gave up Social Security contributions. But now, that doesn't work anymore. Even if you sign such an agreement, it's completely useless. The government now requires you to pay Social Security by law. If the authorities find out that you haven't paid Social Security for your employees, you'll not only have to make up for the unpaid contributions from the time you stopped paying, but you'll also have to pay late fees. That's for not paying the required amount on time. If you delay or postpone the payments, there will be late fees, you know? So, when you're running a business, this is basically forcing all business owners to go solo, to work alone without hiring anyone. If you think your business can survive with just you, the owner, working by yourself, then go ahead and keep doing it. But if not, and you need to hire people, then you have to pay Social Security for them. Can you really afford that, given the current market conditions and the state of business these days? Just barely keeping things afloat is already extremely difficult. If you can afford to pay, then keep paying. I believe that once this new regulation is officially implemented, once it really takes effect, many brick-and-mortar stores and business owners will be facing the prospect of shutting down for good. Why is that? Because they really can't hold on any longer. Some people say that there's a huge loophole when it comes to Social Security. Just how big is it? It's so big that ordinary people can't even imagine the extent of it. We need some solid rocks to fill this pit, to patch up this bottomless hole. So we have to look for stones. But we can't just find one huge rock. There isn't a rock that big. All we can do is gather some gravel and small stones and slowly fill up the pit bit by bit. As long as there are enough stones, we can definitely fill up this pit. So how do we do it? Well, someone came up with the idea of mandating Social Security contributions. Even if you're just a street vendor at the entrance selling soup dumplings or breakfast, as long as you hire someone, even if it's just an auntie or a dishwasher, you have to pay Social Security for them. What's the reason behind this? Everyone think about it carefully and discuss it in the comments. Actually, there are a lot of regulations, whether they're for individuals or set by certain authoritative departments, that only consider the immediate situation and not the long-term consequences. Just think about it. If every shop, as long as it has even one employee, if you hire just one person, you're required to pay social insurance for them. But what if the shop opens for business, operates for 3 months, and then closes down? The owner would have paid 3 months of social insurance for the employee. If the shop goes out of business and shuts down, what happens to that person's social insurance? Today he stops working here, and tomorrow he goes to work somewhere else. If someone works as a waiter, a dishwasher, or a food runner, does the new boss also have to pay social insurance for them? What if they only work for 3 days and then quit? What happens to their social insurance? If they keep switching jobs, working here today and somewhere else tomorrow, what should be done about their social insurance? Have you ever thought about this issue? The authorities require all employers to pay social insurance for every employee. But after paying, restaurants go out of business every few days, and employees keep job hopping. So how should social insurance be handled in these cases? Has anyone considered this problem? Oh, seriously. For business owners, for those running brick and mortar businesses, it's already hard enough to pay all these taxes. It's really tough. They're being forced into a corner.
One former labor NGO member in Shenzhen told an interviewer bluntly, when enforcement began, multiple factories have gone under, not because demand collapsed, but because of the social insurance bill landed. Let's zoom out. If closure continue at this rate, some analysts warn of millions, even tens of millions of workers losing their jobs in the coming year. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. In China's export-driven model, every manufacturing job lost can ripple through entire local economies. Dormitory landlords lose rent. Street vendors lose customers. Migrant families lose their primary source of income. And there's another layer, a growing wave of social insurance withdrawals. Across China's social media, especially on platforms like Douyin, the China version of TikTok, stories are popping up of long lines at the local social insurance bureaus, not to sign up, but to quit. Why? Two main reasons keep coming up. Policy uncertainty, the fear that rules will change again. For example, rising the retirement age from 60 to 65, meaning workers may never see the benefits they've paid in. Affordability. For self-employed workers or those who with unstable jobs, contributions are simply too high relative to income.
Why don't I pay into Social Security? This is just my personal opinion. First, I don't even know how many years I have to pay before I can actually receive Social Security. In 1998, you only needed to pay for 10 years to qualify. By 2011, it changed to 15 years. And starting in 2024, it's become 20 years before you can get Social Security. Will it become 25 years or even 30 years of payments before you can get Social Security in the future? Second, I don't even know at what age I'll actually be able to receive Social Security. Before, you could get Social Security at 60, but now in 2024, they're saying you have to wait until 65. In the future, will it become 70 before you can get Social Security? Third, jobs are unstable. Companies can go bankrupt or lay people off at any time. And even college graduates are having a hard time finding work. After you turn 35, it gets even harder to find a job. You simply can't manage to pay into Social Security for 20 years. If you don't pay for the full 20 years, you can only get back your personal contribution, which is less than 8% of your salary, less than a third of the total Social Security amount. The bulk of what the company pays goes into the pooled account. You simply can't get it back. The loss is just too great. Fourth, I have elderly parents to support and children to raise, and there are just too many expenses right now. There's no way I can think about things that are decades away. Fifth, with the pay-as-you-go system, the Social Security I pay today is used to pay the pensions of elderly people I don't even know tomorrow. Some retirees even receive pensions that are higher than the salaries of young people who are working hard right now. Instead of giving my money to support those strangers in their old age, it would be better to give the money to my own parents for their retirement.
One viral post did the math. Pay in for 40 years, spending roughly 450,000 yuan in lifetime contributions to get a 2,000 yuan monthly pension. Break-even age around 82, 7 years beyond the current life expectancy in China.
I just came across a blogger who said, "Why are you guys even buying Social Security? Just take a walk down the street. How many old men over 70 do you see? The ones dancing in the square at night are all women in their 60s and 70s. And men don't even retire until after 65. How many men actually live past 70? The key point is, you only break even on Social Security if you live to 82. What is Social Security really? Social Security is me betting that they'll support me in old age, and then betting that I won't live to retirement.
Whether that math is oversimplified or not, the fact is that spreading widely speaks values about public sentiment. And all of this is playing out against the backdrop of heightened political control. Ahead of the September 3rd military parade in Beijing, taxi drivers report receiving no politics orders, no discussions of leadership, politics, or international affairs with passengers. Security in the capital has wrapped up. Plainclothes officers on major roads, mandatory ID checks, and a clampdown on gatherings. The message is clear. During politically sensitive period, stability comes first. Even casual conversations in a cab can be considered a risk vector. While domestic tensions rise, a separate drama is unfolding in China's foreign policy apparatus. Multiple sources, including Reuters, report that Liu Jianchao, the current head of the Chinese Communist Party's International Liaison Department, is under investigation. Why does that matter? Liu is a veteran diplomat with stints as foreign ministry spokesperson, ambassador, and head of the CCDI's International Cooperation Unit, where he played a key role in Operation Foxhunt, Beijing's global pursuit of fugitives accused of so-called corruption. He was considered by some observers a possible successor to Foreign Minister Wang Yi. If the reports are accurate, Liu's removal would leave the major leadership gap in China's diplomatic hierarchy, the second high-profile disruption in less than 2 years, following Qinggang's sudden ouster in 2023. As one think tank fellow put it, this could sign a further vacuum in China's external affairs leadership, forcing Wang Yi, now 71, to remain in the role far longer than expected. So in the single month, here's what we see on the board. A nationwide wave of worker unrest tied to new cost burdens in the manufacturing sector. A surge in social insurance withdrawals, signaling public distrust in long-term policy stability. A tightened domestic security environment ahead of a major political event. A potential shakeup at the highest levels of foreign policy leadership. Individually, each of these is significant. Together, they paint a picture of a system managing multiple stress points at once: economic, social, and political. When we talk about strikes in Chinese factories, it's easy to see them as purely domestic issues. But in reality, these disruptions have global consequences, and they are being watched closely in boardrooms from Tokyo to Berlin to Silicon Valley. Here's why. For decades, China has been the linchpin in global manufacturing. A closure in Guangdong or a strike in Shenzhen doesn't just affect local workers. It can delay shipments of auto parts to Mexico, consumer electronics to the EU, and even packaging materials to Southeast Asia. Now combine that with the fact that many multinational firms are already diversifying their supply chains due to tariff pressures, geopolitical tensions, and pandemic-era lessons. A sudden spike in labor disputes reinforces the perception of rising operational risk inside China. That perception can accelerate the China Plus One strategy, shifting production to Vietnam, India, or Mexico. But there is a paradox here. Beijing wants to boost the social protections for workers to avoid unrest and create a more stable society. Yet, if those protections make operating costs too high for businesses, especially export-driven ones, the very jobs those workers depend on could vanish overseas. From a geopolitical standpoint, this isn't just about economics. The manufacturing sector underpins China's leverage in trade negotiations, its role in global value chains, and its ability to project economic influence. If that base starts to erode, even slowly, it can shift the balance of power in ways that will be felt far beyond Asia. So the real question for policymakers in Beijing is this: can they adjust quickly enough to prevent a domestic labor policy from becoming a global supply chain realignment? The official narrative remains one of stability and reform, but on the ground, factories are closing, workers are striking, and some of Beijing's most experienced diplomats may be leaving the stage under a cloud. So here's the question: is that simply the turbulence of a large, complex adjusting its policies? Or are we watching the early signs of a deeper structural strain, one that could reshape the balance between economic growth, social stability, and political control in China? As always, the answer will depend on how the next moves are made and who's still on the chessboard when those moves come. That's all for today on China Decoded. Thanks for watching. Behind the slogans, beyond the surface. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed. See you in the next one.